Thank you for watching this video, hope everyone's having a good day, and as always, it's time for more Castlevania. You probably already know this, but I made videos about all of the previous Castlevania games before this one, and I am going in with the mindset that you're at least aware of those other games, so I would recommend you check those out first. But anyways, let's get on with this. When prompted with the question, what is usually considered to be the worst Castlevania game? Most people would likely say that it's Castlevania The Adventure. I personally don't think it's the worst out there, but I will definitely agree that it is an absolutely awful game, for reasons I already went over. But when it comes to its sequel, Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge, released at 1991, it's a completely different story. Belmont's Revenge is one of the least talked about games in the series, as I assume most people didn't even bother with it after playing The Adventure, guessing it's just more of the same. But over the years, Belmont's Revenge has earned a bit of a reputation for being a hidden gem. It's the best Castlevania game you've never played, they say, and that actually got me interested, because I honest to god can barely remember a single thing about my first playthrough of Belmont's Revenge, which was done on the Anniversary Collection. Big shock, I know. I remember a few bits and pieces, but I was just going by the motions for most of it, using save states like every 2 seconds. So in the end, I came out of it with virtually no opinion whatsoever, and I never came back to it. Because why would I bother replaying the stupid Game Boy game I can barely remember that's a sequel of a game I hate? So all of this got me very intrigued when I heard about Belmont's Revenge's cult status. And so today, it is finally time for me to give Belmont's Revenge a second shot, analyzing it fair and square, to see whether it really is an overlooked gem, or if I was right with not giving it a second glance. Just like The Adventure, Belmont's Revenge got a Game Boy Color release with the Konami GB collection, this time through Volume 4, which was actually the very last one. This is the definitive version of Belmont's Revenge, as it adds color making the game look better, as well as retranslating the script. It's still not Oscar-worthy translation, but it's definitely better than the originals, so this version is kinda just objectively the best. Unless you just really hate Antarctic Adventure and can't stomach the game sharing a cart with it. But Antarctic Adventure never offended me personally, so I'm all good with this version. But without further ado, this is Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge. As always, let's start off with the story. Surprisingly enough, Belmont's Revenge's plot is actually pretty unique for Castlevania standards, believe it or not. So let's go over it. The game is a direct sequel to The Adventure, taking place 15 years after Christopher Belmont defeated Dracula. But as we saw in the ending of The Adventure, Dracula managed to survive his confrontation with Christopher, and escaped his destroyed castle beneath Christopher's nose. However, Dracula was severely weakened after Christopher beat the shit out of him, so he had to patiently wait for a chance to strike back. Coming back to 15 years later, and it is time for Christopher's son, the often forgotten Soleil Belmont, or Soleil as he was mistakenly called in the original version, to take part in a ritual that will let him inherit the title of Vampire Hunter. But unbeknownst to anyone, Dracula had been waiting for this exact moment, as he uses Soleil's sacred powers to resurrect his body. The next day, 4 castles appear out of nowhere, and Soleil has gone missing in action, as Christopher now has to go and find his missing child, and hopefully defeat Dracula once again. This premise isn't anything too special, but it's a pretty unique setup, and I greatly appreciate the game's plot for trying to do something new, rather than just being another Dracula's back and the Belmont has to stop him plot. It instead follows up on something that was set up in the previous installment, and adds quite a few elements we've never seen before. Each of the games so far only had one Belmont, so it's cool that we get to see 2 of them in one game at the same time, and it goes on to explain that they have to undergo a ceremony to pass their title along. That kind of world building is pretty neat, though it's also a bit weird that the game is called Belmont's Revenge, like revenge for what? I feel like Dracula's Revenge would have made more sense. But before moving on, I do have one little nitpick about this premise, and that is that I feel like it would have made a lot more sense if instead of Christopher, Soleil would have gotten to be the protagonist this time around, with Christopher going missing in his place. Christopher already got his time to shine in the previous game, and it's kind of a shame Soleil is such a forgettable Belmont when compared to the others. I think his character design is really cool, definitely more unique than any of the other Belmonts so far, and I think it would have made Belmont's Revenge stand out more. Probably not that much more, but definitely a little bit more. Hashtag justice to Soleil, I will make enough alternate accounts to get it trending by myself, damn it. Belmont's Revenge does definitely stand out with its structure. Instead of going through a linear set of stages that gradually increase in difficulty, Belmont's Revenge instead lets you pick which of the 4 castles you'd like to tackle first, adding in some non-linearity, as it makes it so that there are technically 24 different ways you can go about tackling the first half of the game. After you finish all 4 castles, Castlevania will submerge from the ocean, as you go through the game's final stages. Each of the castles are pretty small, as they only contain 1 stage each, with Castlevania itself only being comprised of 2 levels this time around. But back to the 4 starting castles. While the idea of having the first half of the game be non-linear may sound pretty cool, I sadly think it was executed rather poorly here. Let's compare this setup to a Mega Man game, as Mega Man was likely the inspiration for this setup in the first place. Most Mega Man games let you tackle their first 8 stages in any order you want, before pulling you into the end game, but the difference between Mega Man and Belmont's Revenge is that Mega Man actually gives you an incentive to take care of stages in certain orders. Every time you finish a level in Mega Man, you get a weapon that can be used as a weakness of a boss in another level. This encourages experimentation and replayability, as some weapons will make certain levels and bosses easier, and the final stages can be designed with the player already having all of the weapons in mind, and offer up new, interesting challenges. But now let's go back to Belmont's Revenge. Unlike Mega Man, you don't get any reward for finishing a castle, meaning there is no incentive to do them in any order whatsoever. I feel like this kinda misses the point of letting you do them in any order. Why would it matter if I go through the Crystal Castle before the Rock Castle? One of them doesn't give you anything that helps in making the other one easier. The lack of incentive to take care of the castles in certain orders means Belmont's Revenge only has the cons of this setup, and none of the pros. Those cons being the lack of difficulty balance. Each castle is about as equally easy as the other, which means that Belmont's Revenge never really gets any harder during its first half. It's only after Castlevania shows up that the difficulty ramps up. I could forgive games like Mega Man for having this issue, because they utilize the non-linearity well, but Belmont's Revenge doesn't, which in turn worsens it. I would have much preferred if they removed the non-linear setup in order to have better difficulty balancing. Belmont's Revenge locally does fare up much better visually. It's still a Game Boy game, so I didn't expect too much out of it, but when comparing it to the adventure, it's night and day. Belmont's Revenge supports far more detailed sprite work. It's still not up to par with the NES games, but it is a huge step up from the adventure, and is a great looking Game Boy game in general. But the best thing about the graphics is that unlike the adventure, Belmont's Revenge is far more visually solid. The screen doesn't tear apart when it scrolls, and the game runs at a consistent frame rate with barely any slowdown whatsoever. It's kinda shocking how much of an improvement this is. Belmont's Revenge actually feels like a finished game, and it really goes to show that the adventure's technical shortcomings really were due to poor programming, since this game, which is on the same platform, both looks and runs far better than it. The controls have also been majorly improved. It might just be due to the better frame rate, but Christopher feels 1,000 times better here than he did in the adventure. He still carries the quirks of the series as previous games, but it handles much more like the NES games, so I don't have an issue with them here. Belmont's Revenge also has the same whip upgrades as the adventure, with the first one being the chain whip, and the second letting you shoot fireballs, but unlike the adventure, your whip doesn't downgrade when you get hit. Thank fucking god! This is such a huge improvement. There is actually one attack that can downgrade your whip, those being the orbs the returning Punagushi spew out, but I honestly don't mind it at all, as it gives them a unique gimmick, and they aren't too terribly common. As a compensation for this, the Fireball Whip upgrade is far rarer this time around, but I'm honestly completely okay with that, as it prevents it from being overpowered. The sub-weapons are also back. Well, kind of. Belmont's Revenge only has 2 sub-weapons, and those actually depend on what version you're playing. The Holy Water is there no matter what, but while the Japanese and Game Boy Color versions have the cross, the original American and European versions have the axe instead. I personally think both of them are fine choices, but I do prefer the cross over the axe, as I always found it to be more useful. And when I think Castlevania sub-weapons, the Holy Water and cross are definitely the ones that come to mind first. And when I think Castlevania, I think music. And while the adventure soundtrack kinda disappointed me, Belmont's Revenge as OST absolutely didn't. The soundtrack is pretty small, but god if it isn't amazing all the same. I mean, just New Messiah alone is up there with some of the series' greats. And most of the game's other tracks are just as good, with Praying Hands, Original Sin, and Union, the ending theme, being highlights for sure. This is just a great soundtrack. Was definitely not expecting it to be as good as it was, but the soundtrack didn't shock me as much as the level design, because, and I'm probably going to get some flack for this, but Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge, in my opinion, has the best, most consistent level design in the series yet. My only real issue with it is that the difficulty balance is a bit poor, as I mentioned earlier, but Belmont's Revenge absolutely shines at how much creativity it pumps out. The ropes are back from the adventure, but not only do they let you attack while climbing them, as well as climb them down much faster by holding A while doing so, but they also get used so much better. In the adventure, the ropes are only ever really used to move around vertically and get you to higher areas, but in Belmont's Revenge, they squeeze so much out of them. There are these spider enemies who let out ropes you can climb on, shifting rope conveyables that either increase or decrease your speed, as well as so much creative level design application. And it doesn't even stop there. The Rock Castle has a brilliant spin on the series' staple candles. In some rooms deep into it, they serve as actual lighting, meaning that if they aren't on screen, it will be completely blacked out. That gives the stage a risk-reward system. Would you rather break the candles to get their items, but have a harder time with the level? Or would you rather break your muscle memory and actively avoid breaking candles to have an easier time with the level itself? Stuff like that is extremely creative. I do feel like they could have pushed many of these gimmicks more, but they're all still great as they are. And the levels in Belmont's Revenge never get boring. There was always something going on that kept my attention. It's honestly kind of a shame this game is on the Game Boy, because I'm sure it could have gotten so much wilder if they had stronger hardware to work with. Most of the boss fights are pretty simple, but effective. Not really much to say about most of them. You still have to get an orb to make them show up weirdly enough. With all of the weird quirks they fixed from the adventure, I find it bizarre that this thing is still here. But with that, let's move on to the end game. As I said earlier, after going through all 4 castles, Castlevania submerges from the ocean, and it looks really weird in this game. It's almost like some bizarre futuristic space station, but its levels themselves are pretty standard to what you'd find in the rest of the game. That is, until you make it to Soleil, who declares he'll bring Dracula back, and begins fighting Christopher. This battle is hard. Soleil is fast and will absolutely assault you with attacks. It's definitely gonna take you quite a few tries to take him down, which is why I highly appreciate that the game has a permanent checkpoint halfway through the stage with this fight. Even if you get a game over after crossing this area, you will always come back here, meaning that you won't have to redo too much if you lose to Soleil. It turned what could have been a very frustrating battle into a very fun one for me. After his defeat, we get some incredibly awkward dialogue telling you to quickly go and defeat Dracula. The final stage is just a short straight line to the boss, though I do think the background is real pretty. The final Dracula battle only has one phase this time around, but it is perhaps the toughest phase yet. Dracula moves around fast and just barrages you with attacks every chance he gets. It's a difficult battle heavily reliant on trial and error. You need to study his patterns and learn how to best go about dodging his attacks while dealing damage. And since you can rematch him right away even after you get the game over, I don't actually mind this at all. In order to defeat him, you need to basically dance around the battle arena knowing the exact spots where you're immune to damage. It's a pretty great finale gameplay wise. The ending has Christopher watching over Castlevania crumble once again, this time with Soleil, as we get told through text that he's so slow it's kinda hilarious. That Christopher was able to defeat Dracula once again thanks to his love for his son. Jesus Christ. And that Soleil has been freed from his dark spell we never got told about and is now a good guy again. Wow. So this plot kinda falls flat at the end. I think it's mostly thanks to the very awkward translation, which is still better than the originals, believe it or not. But I do think there could have been a lot of potential with Soleil actually being evil. Maybe he wanted to resurrect Dracula because of spite towards his father. I don't know, I feel like this ending is just kinda missing something that could have made it a hell of a lot better. Because as it is now, it's okay. And that is all I really had to say about Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge. I'm gonna be real with you. I kinda doubted that this game would be as good as people said it is. I kinda just thought they were overhyping it because it's obscure. But after finally replaying it, yeah, I gotta agree with them. This really is an underrated gem. Of course, I had my issues with it, but they were mostly just minor nitpicks at the grand scheme of things. I'd still put Belmont Revenge below the original Castlevania and Dracula's Curse, but it is going way above Kid Dracula for sure. Part of me does however wonder how much I would have actually liked Belmont's Revenge if the adventure wasn't as bad as it was, because it serves as a comparison piece that makes Belmont's Revenge look really good. But even without the adventure, Belmont's Revenge is still a great Castlevania game I would highly recommend any fan of the genre check out. The word needs to be spread. Honestly, the worst thing about this game is that it's on the Game Boy, because if this game was made with the more powerful hardware in mind, I'm sure it would have been something really special. But with that, the Castlevania marathon is going on a bit of a hiatus for a while. I originally planned to go until Symphony of the Night, but I'd rather avoid Castlevania Burnout. And there's a certain other series I'm very much looking forward to covering, so it's gonna be a bit before Castlevania will return, but when it will be with Super Castlevania 4, so until then, I hope you look forward to my other works. Oh, and here are my rankings of the game so far in case you are curious. See ya! God, my fucking throat is dead. Thank you so much for watching. Been having a bit of a hard time with voiceover lately. Don't worry, I'm all healthy, just like, my throat and my accent and all of my bullcrap. But yeah, thank you so much for watching again. Please subscribe and like and comment, and if you like, I'll be very happy and you'll be very cool, and I'm stupid, so it'll enlighten me. Thank you, bye.